I found out my husband was unfaithful the same week. I lost our fifth baby. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what the doctors found inside me 3 months later, and what it revealed about the man I trusted with my life.
This is CrimeAtlas. Thank you for joining us today. Hit the like button if you enjoy this video, subscribe, and turn on your post notifications.
Emily Carter grew up believing in fairy tales, though her childhood gave her little reason to. She was 8 when her father left. No dramatic fight, no tearful goodbye, just an empty chair at dinner one Tuesday night and her mother's face, frozen in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daddy had to go away for work, her mother had said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Emily learned 2 things that night: that people you love can disappear without warning, and that you should smile through the pain so others don't have to feel uncomfortable. Her mother, Margaret, worked 2 jobs to keep their small house in the suburbs. Emily became the caretaker for her younger sisters, 9-year-old Sarah and 6-year-old Jenna. She made their lunches, braided their hair, checked their homework. At parent-teacher conferences, Emily sat beside her exhausted mother, holding her hand, playing the role of second parent before she'd even reached middle school. "You're my little rock," her mother would say, kissing her forehead, and Emily would glow with purpose, not realizing she was learning to find worth only in how much she could sacrifice. In high school, Emily dated a boy named Marcus. He was her first love, or what she thought was love. He was charming when he wanted something, distant when he didn't. He'd cancel plans last minute, then show up with flowers days later. Emily learned to wait by the phone, to forgive quickly, to shrink her needs to fit the space he allowed. When Marcus cheated on her junior year, Emily blamed herself. Asterisk if I'd been prettier. If I'd been less needy. If I'd been enough. Asterisk. Her mother found her crying in the bathroom. "Baby, some people just aren't capable of seeing your worth," Margaret had said, stroking her daughter's hair. "But that doesn't mean you stop being worthy." Emily nodded, but the lesson didn't stick. Instead, she learned that love meant enduring, that good women made things work, that walking away was giving up. By the time Emily graduated college with a degree in elementary education, she dated 3 more men. Each relationship followed the same pattern. She gave everything. They gave what was convenient. And when they left, Emily cataloged her failures rather than theirs. Her sisters worried. Sarah, now a paralegal, would say, "You deserve someone who shows up for you." Jenna, studying psychology, was blunter. "You're addicted to fixing broken men because you think it'll prove you're not broken." Emily would laugh them off. "I'm fine. I just haven't met the right person yet." She wanted what her parents never had: a lasting love, a family that stayed whole, children who would never wonder why daddy's chair was empty. She wanted to build something permanent in a world that had taught her everything was temporary. Emily worked as a 3rd-grade teacher at Riverside Elementary. Her classroom walls were covered with her students' artwork, her desk drawer full of bandages and encouraging notes. She loved the work, loved watching children discover they could do hard things, loved being the adult who showed up consistently, who believed in them even when they didn't believe in themselves. But at night, alone in her small apartment, Emily felt the ache of incompleteness. She'd scroll through social media, seeing former classmates with engagement rings and baby announcements, and wonder when it would be her turn. "You're only 26, her best friend Rachel would say over wine. "You have time." But Emily didn't feel like she had time. She felt like she was running out of chances to prove she could make love work, to show that she was the kind of woman someone would stay for. So when she met Ethan Holloway at Rachel's birthday party, she was ready, perhaps too ready, to believe he was the answer to everything she'd been waiting for. Ethan Holloway commanded attention the moment he entered a room. He was tall, with dark hair that fell just slightly across his forehead in a way that seemed effortlessly stylish. His smile was easy, confident, the smile of someone who'd never been told no and wouldn't know what to do with rejection if he heard it. He wore success casually. The expensive watch, the tailored shirt, the expensive cologne that lingered just long enough to be memorable. "That's Rachel's cousin," her friend whispered, nudging Emily. "Just moved back from Chicago. Investment banker. Single." Emily had noticed him before Rachel's introduction, noticed how he laughed loudly at jokes, how people naturally gravitated toward him, how he seemed comfortable being the center of attention. When Rachel brought him over, His eyes locked on Emily's with an intensity that made her breath catch. "So you're the famous Emily," Ethan said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, warm. "Rachel says you're the best teacher in the state and an absolute saint for putting up with her drama." Emily laughed, feeling her cheeks flush. "Rachel exaggerates. About the drama or about you?" There was something calculated about his charm, but Emily was too caught up in the attention to notice. They talked for hours that night. About her teaching, his work restructuring failing companies, their shared love of old movies and hiking trails neither had actually explored recently. "I moved back to take care of some family business," Ethan explained, his expression momentarily shadowing. "My father's health isn't great. He built everything from nothing, and now—" He trailed off, looking genuinely vulnerable for the first time that evening. Emily's heart softened immediately. Here was someone who understood responsibility, who put family first. That must be really difficult. It is. But family is everything, you know? You do what needs to be done. He looked at her then with such warmth that Emily felt seen in a way she hadn't in years. That's rare these days. Finding someone who gets that. The courtship was whirlwind. Ethan texted her the next morning, called her that afternoon, took her to an upscale restaurant that weekend where he ordered for both of them with casual authority that felt romantic rather than controlling. "I think you'll love the salmon here," he'd said, not asking what she wanted. And she had loved it, or convinced herself she did, because he'd chosen it especially for her. He sent flowers to her classroom, expensive bouquets that made the other teachers whisper enviously and her students giggle. "Is that from your boyfriend, Miss Carter?" "Yes," Emily would say, smiling at the cards that read things like, "Thinking of you," and asterisk, "Can't wait to see you tonight." Asterisk. But there were small things, even then, that didn't quite fit. Like how Ethan would sometimes go hours without responding to her texts, then call late at night, expecting her to be available immediately. Or how he described his ex-girlfriend as crazy and obsessive without elaborating. Or the way his jaw would tighten when other men talked to Emily, though he'd laugh it off afterward. "Can you blame me for being jealous? Look at you." Rachel pulled Emily aside one evening. "Don't you think he's moving kind of fast? He knows what he wants," Emily defended. "Is it so wrong that he wants me?" "I'm just saying, you've known him 6 weeks, and he's already talking about moving in together." Emily had bristled at that. Rachel didn't understand what it was like to finally be chosen, to be someone's priority instead of their backup plan. "You're the one who introduced us." "I know, but—" Rachel hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Ethan's always been intense. Even when we were kids. He doesn't like to lose. This isn't a game, Ratch. This is my life. Our life." 3 months after they met, Ethan proposed. It happened on a Friday evening at the same restaurant where they'd had their first date. He'd planned everything perfectly. The private corner table, the champagne, the small velvet box that appeared just as dessert arrived. "Emily Carter, you've made me believe in second chances," Ethan said, down on one knee as other diners turned to watch. "I've never met anyone as kind, as patient, as perfect as you. Marry me. Build a life with me. Let me spend every day proving I deserve you." Emily said yes through tears, overwhelmed by the rightness of the moment, by the certainty that this was her fairy tale finally beginning. What she didn't see was the calculation behind his eyes, the way he'd gauged the crowd's reaction before he'd even opened the box. She didn't notice that he'd never actually asked what she wanted, only told her what he needed. And she certainly didn't know that across town, in an apartment Ethan kept secret, another woman named Claire was deleting his contact from her phone after weeks of being told he was too busy with work to see her. The engagement photos went up on social media within the hour. Emily glowed in every picture, her hand extended to show off the ring, her smile radiant with hope. In the comments, Rachel typed "Congrats, Em," with a smiley face emoji, then deleted the text message she'd started writing. "Please be careful." But careful was the last thing Emily planned to be. She'd finally found someone who wanted her forever. At least, that's what she believed. If you're still watching, share and like this video. Subscribe and turn on post notification so you don't miss out on our next story. The wedding was everything Emily had dreamed of, and everything she hadn't asked for. She'd imagined something intimate. Close friends, family, maybe a garden ceremony with string lights and wildflowers. But Ethan had other ideas. "We're only doing this once," he'd said when she suggested something small. "Let's do it right. Make it memorable." So the wedding became his production. A grand hotel ballroom, 200 guests, most of whom Emily had never met, an orchestra instead of a DJ, and a photographer who cost more than Emily's annual salary. When she mentioned the budget, Ethan waved her off. "Don't worry about money. I'm handling it. You just focus on being beautiful." It should have felt generous. Instead, it felt like being placed on a shelf, decorative but not consulted. Her mother noticed during dress shopping. They were at the third boutique, Emily trying on the fifth gown Ethan had pre-selected from the store's website. "Do you like any of these, honey?" Margaret asked quietly as the attendant adjusted a train Emily found too elaborate. "They're beautiful." "That's not what I asked." Emily met her mother's eyes in the mirror. For a moment, she almost admitted the truth, that she felt like a prop in someone else's fantasy, that Ethan made decisions and she simply agreed, that somewhere in the excitement she'd lost track of what she actually wanted. But then the attendant gasped, "Oh, you look absolutely stunning," and the moment passed. "I like them," Emily said firmly. "Ethan has great taste." The bachelorette party should have been fun. Rachel had planned a weekend at a lakeside cabin, just Emily, her sisters, and 3 close friends. But the night before they left, Ethan had called, upset. "A whole weekend? Really?" His voice carried an edge Emily was learning to recognize, the one that meant she was about to apologize for something she hadn't known was wrong. "It's just 2 nights," she said, "right before the wedding, when I'm drowning in last-minute details. I thought we were a team, Em." She'd felt guilt settle heavy in her stomach. "We are. I can come back early if you need." No. Go have fun with your friends." The words were right, but his tone made them feel like a punishment. "I'll just handle everything myself." Again, Emily had spent the entire weekend checking her phone, texting Ethan updates, leaving the cabin early Sunday morning despite her sister's protests. "He's manipulating you," Jenna had said bluntly. "He's stressed," Emily had countered. "Planning a wedding is hard." "You're planning a wedding too, Em. Somehow you're not using it as an excuse to control him." One of them said. Sarah, ever the peacemaker, had intervened. "Let's just get through the wedding. Then things will calm down." But things didn't calm down. The night before the wedding, they'd had their first real fight. They were staying in separate hotel rooms. Tradition, Emily's mother had insisted, and Ethan had come by late, smelling of whiskey. "Were you drinking with the guys?" Emily asked lightly. "Is that a problem?" His eyes flashed with something she couldn't quite name. "No, I just what, Emily? You don't trust me? After everything I've done for you, you're going to start nagging me now?" The words hit like a slap. "That's not fair. I was just asking. Do you know how many women would kill to be in your position? Marrying someone like me?" He stepped closer, and Emily instinctively stepped back. "Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe you're not ready for this." Terror flooded through her. "Ethan, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it." He'd studied her face for a long moment. Then his expression softened. He pulled her into his arms, and she felt him trembling. Or was that her? "I'm sorry, baby. I'm just nervous. Tomorrow's a big day." He kissed the top of her head. "I just love you so much it scares me sometimes. The thought of losing you." "You're not going to lose me," Emily whispered against his chest, ignoring the small voice in her head that was screaming for her to run. The wedding day itself was a blur. Emily smiled through the ceremony, repeated the vows Ethan had written, to honor him, to support him, to trust him always, to submit to him, and felt a strange numbness as the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. In the reception photos, she looked radiant. No one could see the bruise forming on her upper arm where Ethan had gripped her too tightly before they walked down the aisle together, hissing, "Smile. Everyone's watching." During the father-daughter dance, Emily danced with her uncle since her father wasn't there. Ethan stood at the bar, his jaw tight, drinking scotch and watching her with an intensity that made her miss his step. Later, as they cut the cake, Ethan had smashed his piece in Emily's face just a bit too hard, laughing as she gasped. The guests laughed too, thinking it playful. But Emily had tasted blood where the frosting had forced her lip against her teeth. "Come on, it's just a joke," Ethan said when he saw her expression. "Don't be so sensitive." That night, in their honeymoon suite, Emily stared at herself in the bathroom mirror, still in her wedding dress, and felt something she couldn't quite name. It wasn't joy. It wasn't excitement. It was dread. From the bedroom, Ethan called out, voice already slurring from the champagne and whiskey and whatever else he consumed. Come here. We've got celebrating to do. Emily touched the bruise on her arm gently, then covered it with makeup one more time. She turned off the light, plastered on a smile, and walked into her new life. Behind her, in the darkness of the bathroom, her reflection watched her go, and if mirrors could speak, hers would have whispered a warning she wouldn't hear for months to come. It only gets worse from here. They went to Santorini for their honeymoon. Ethan had insisted on Greece despite Emily's suggestion of somewhere more affordable. Nothing but the best for my wife, he'd said, booking the clifftop villa with the infinity pool and the view of the caldera that looked photoshopped even in person. The first 2 days were perfect, or Emily told herself they were. They drank wine on the terrace at sunset, made love with the windows open, the Aegean breeze cooling their skin, explored the narrow streets of Oia, Ethan's arm around her waist, posing for photos that would make their friends back home envious. But on the third day, Emily made a mistake. They were at lunch, a small taverna overlooking the water, when their waiter, a young Greek man with kind eyes and a warm smile, asked where they were from. The States, Emily said. It's our honeymoon. Ah, congratulations. The waiter beamed. Your first time in Santorini? Yes, it's absolutely beautiful. I've always wanted to. She's always wanted a lot of things. Ethan interrupted, his tone light, but his eyes hard. The wine list. The waiter's smile faltered slightly. Of course. I'll give you a moment. After he left, Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying Emily with an expression she couldn't read. You seem pretty chatty. What? I was just being friendly. Friendly. He repeated the word slowly, tasting it. Is that what you call flirting now? Emily's stomach dropped. I wasn't flirting. He was just what? Just a nice young guy who made my wife laugh. Ethan's voice remained conversational, but there was venom underneath. I watched you, the way you smiled at him, the way you touched your hair. I wasn't. Emily felt her face flush with confusion and mounting panic. Ethan, I love you. I just got married. I would never. Then why do you make me feel like I'm competing for your attention? He reached across the table, taking her hand in a grip that looked affectionate but felt like a vice. I moved heaven and earth to bring you here, and you can't even focus on me for one meal? I'm sorry, Emily whispered, though she wasn't sure what she was apologizing for. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. His expression shifted instantly, like a switch being flipped. The anger vanished, replaced by a wounded vulnerability that made Emily's heart ache. I know, baby. I know. It's just, I love you so much it makes me crazy sometimes. The thought of someone else catching your eye. No one is catching my eye. You're all I see. Ethan kissed her knuckles, his eyes soft again. You promise. I promise. When the waiter returned, Emily kept her gaze on the menu and spoke in monosyllables. She felt the young man's confusion, maybe even his concern, but she didn't dare risk Ethan's reaction again. That night, Ethan made love to her with an intensity that bordered on violence. He held her wrists above her head, his grip tight enough to leave marks, whispering, You're mine. Say it. Say you're mine. I'm yours. Emily gasped, and she felt something inside her shrink just a little smaller. The rest of the honeymoon followed a pattern Emily was learning to navigate. If she kept her eyes down, her attention focused solely on Ethan. If she laughed at his jokes and agreed with his observations and never contradicted him, things went smoothly. He was charming, generous, affectionate. But if she made a mistake, commenting on another man's photography skills, taking too long in a shop, suggesting a restaurant he hadn't already decided on, the temperature would drop. He wouldn't yell. That would have been easier somehow, more obvious. Instead, he would go silent, cold, make her work to earn back his warmth. You're so beautiful when you're trying to make me happy, he'd said one evening as she apologized for something she couldn't even remember doing wrong. That's the Emily I married, not the selfish one. Selfish. The word lodged in her chest like a splinter. On their last night, Emily stood on the villa's terrace while Ethan slept off too much ouzo. She looked out at the lights dotting the hillside, at the cruise ships in the harbor, at the vast dark sea beyond. She thought about the Emily who'd existed before, the teacher who made her own decisions, who had friends and hobbies and opinions. That Emily felt impossibly far away, like someone she'd read about in a book. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "How's paradise? You're probably too busy being blissful to text your poor single friend." Emily started to type. "I think I made a mistake." But she deleted it character by character, replacing it with, "Amazing. Wish you were here." She added a photo, one of her and Ethan from earlier that day, both smiling. You couldn't see the tension in her shoulders or the tightness around her eyes. You couldn't see how she'd learned to hold her body in ways that prevented bruising, or how she'd stopped meeting people's eyes when Ethan was with her. In the photo, they looked like the perfect couple, like people who belonged in this beautiful place, living this beautiful life. Rachel texted back, "You two are goals. So happy for you, Em." Emily locked her phone and went back inside, where Ethan was stirring, reaching for her in his sleep. She climbed into bed beside him, letting him pull her close, his arm heavy across her ribs. In the morning, they'd fly home. They'd move into the house Ethan had bought without consulting her. She'd start her new life as Mrs. Holloway, leaving behind the parts of herself that didn't fit into Ethan's vision of who she should be. But that night, on their last night in Santorini, Emily Carter, the girl who'd grown up believing love meant sacrifice, whispered 3 words into the darkness. "I want out." Then she closed her eyes and tried to forget she'd ever thought them. Because good wives didn't give up. Good wives made things work. And Emily had spent her whole life trying to be good. 6 months into their marriage, Emily missed her period. She took the test alone in the bathroom of their house, a sprawling colonial Ethan had purchased in an upscale neighborhood where all the lawns looked identical and the houses cost more than Emily could fathom. She'd wanted something smaller, cozier, but Ethan insisted they needed room to grow. The 2 pink lines appeared almost immediately. Emily's hands shook as she stared at them, a complicated mix of emotions flooding through her. Terror, hope, joy, dread. She thought about her 3rd graders, about how she'd have to take leave, about whether she was ready. But beneath all of it was something simpler, the aching desire to create something good, something pure, something that was half her. Maybe a baby would fix things. Maybe Ethan would soften. Maybe being a father would bring back the man she'd fallen in love with. She told him that night over dinner. She'd made his favorite meal, steak, medium rare, with garlic mashed potatoes. She'd set the table with candles. She'd even bought a small gift box, placing the pregnancy test inside with a note that read, "Coming soon, Baby Holloway." Ethan opened it between bites, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched. Emily's heart hammered. "Well," she finally asked, her voice small, "what do you think?" He looked up at her, and for just a moment, she saw something like panic cross his face. Then it vanished, replaced by a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Wow. That's great, Em. Great." She'd hoped for more joy, excitement, tears maybe. "Just great. I mean, it's fast. We've barely been married 6 months." He took a long drink of his wine. "But yeah, great. I guess we're doing this. Not the response Emily had imagined during the 100 times she'd rehearsed this moment in her head. The first few weeks were strange. Ethan became oddly attentive in some ways, asking if she'd taken her prenatal vitamins, telling her not to lift heavy things, monitoring what she ate. But there was something performative about it, like he was playing the role of concerned husband rather than being one. He also started drinking more. Not at dinner anymore. Now it was after Emily went to bed. She'd wake at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom and find him on the couch, a bottle of scotch beside him, staring at nothing. "Can't sleep?" she'd ask. "Go back to bed, Emily." She was 10 weeks along when she felt the first cramp. It happened during her planning period at school. A sharp pain in her lower abdomen that made her gasp. Then another. She rushed to the bathroom and saw the blood. The miscarriage happened quickly after that. The ER doctor was kind but clinical. "These things happen, especially in first pregnancies. There's nothing you did wrong. Your body just, sometimes it knows when something isn't developing properly." Ethan had met her at the hospital. He'd held her hand in the examination room, said the right things to the doctors. But in the car ride home, he'd been silent. Not the silence of grief, but something else. Something that felt like accusation. "Did you lift something at school?" he finally asked. "What?" "No. The doctor said it wasn't." Because I told you be careful. I specifically told you. Emily stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Are you blaming me? I'm just saying, you kept working. You kept doing everything like normal. Maybe if you'd actually rested. The doctor said it wasn't my fault. Yeah, well, doctors say a lot of things. They tried again. And again. Emily got pregnant easily. Her body had no trouble with conception. But it couldn't hold on to the life growing inside her. Second miscarriage at 8 weeks. Third at 12. Fourth at 7. Each loss was its own special hell. The hope, the terror, the desperate attempts to do everything right. Emily gave up coffee, avoided soft cheeses, stopped running, spent her evenings with her feet elevated, praying to a God she wasn't sure she believed in. And each time, Ethan's response was the same. A brief moment of what looked like concern, followed by withdrawal. He'd stay out late after each loss, coming home smelling of perfume that wasn't Emily's, with explanations that grew increasingly thin. Working late, drinks with clients. You were sleeping, didn't want to wake you. Emily pretended to believe him because the alternative was admitting her marriage was falling apart while her body was failing her. Her family noticed. Her mother came to visit after the fourth miscarriage and found Emily cleaning the bathroom at midnight, scrubbing the grout with a toothbrush, tears streaming silently down her face. Baby, you need a rest, Margaret said gently. I need to do something. I need to fix something. Emily's voice broke. Why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. Sometimes bodies just don't. Please don't tell me it happens, or it wasn't meant to be, or any of those things people say when they don't know what else to say. Margaret knelt beside her daughter. Where's Ethan? She asked. Out. Emily simply said. It's almost 1 a.m. I know. Emily, her mom began. Please, Mom. I can't talk about that too. After her mother left, Emily lay in bed alone, her hand on her empty stomach, and felt something crack inside her. Not her heart, that had been breaking slowly for months. Something deeper. The part of her that believed trying harder would make things right. The part that thought love conquered all. When Ethan finally came home at 3 a.m., reeking of alcohol and another woman's perfume, Emily didn't say a word. She just turned her face to the wall and wondered how much more of herself she could lose before there was nothing left to save. Emily got pregnant for the 5th time on a night she couldn't quite remember. Ethan had been drinking. He was always drinking now, and he'd wanted her in a way that felt more like rage than desire. She'd been too tired to resist, too numb to care. Her body had become a battleground, between hope and despair, between her longing for a child and the growing certainty that her marriage was destroying her. When the test showed positive again, Emily didn't feel joy. She felt dread. She didn't tell Ethan immediately. She held the secret for 3 days, carrying it like a stone in her chest. Part of her wondered if she said nothing, maybe it would disappear on its own. Maybe her body would reject this one too, and she wouldn't have to see that look on his face, the one that was equal parts disappointment and something darker. But she made it past 8 weeks, then 10, then 12. At 13 weeks, Emily let herself hope. She bought a baby book, hiding in the back of her closet. She touched her still flat stomach and whispered to the tiny life inside. Please stay. Please. I promise I'll protect you. But she couldn't protect this baby any more than she could protect herself. Ethan's violence had been escalating slowly. Not every day. That would have been too obvious. But the bad nights were getting worse, and the good days fewer. He'd shove her during arguments, grab her arms hard enough to bruise. Once, he'd thrown his phone across the room, and it shattered against the wall 3 inches from her head. See what you made me do, he'd said, as if her existence was the problem, not his rage. Emily had learned to be small, to be quiet, to predict his moods and adjust accordingly. But she couldn't always predict correctly. The night it happened, the night that would later haunt her, started with something trivial. Ethan came home from work in a foul mood. Some deal had fallen through. A promotion had gone to someone else. Emily had dinner ready, but she'd made chicken instead of the beef he'd wanted. I told you I wanted steak tonight. No, you said maybe steak. I thought. You thought. Jesus, Emily, you're always thinking, always assuming. Why can't you just listen? I can make something else. Forget it. He pushed past her, his shoulders slamming into hers hard enough to knock her off balance. I'm not hungry anyway. Emily should have left it alone. Should have let him drink and brood and eventually pass out. But something in her snapped. Maybe the hormones. Maybe the exhaustion. Maybe just the accumulation of 1,000 small cruelties. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "I'm trying. I'm trying so hard to make you happy, and nothing I do is ever enough." Ethan turned slowly, his eyes dark. "You want to know why I'm doing this?" "Yes. Because you're pathetic. Because you trap me with these pregnancies you can't even carry. Because every time I look at you, I see everything I settled for." The words hit like physical blows. Emily felt tears spring to her eyes, hot and sudden. "I didn't trap you. You said you wanted. I wanted a wife who could give me children, not some broken woman who loses them over and over." He took a step toward her, and Emily instinctively stepped back. "Do you know how embarrassing it is? My colleagues ask about kids, and I have to make excuses for you." "For me?" Emily's voice rose. "I'm the one going through this. I'm the one." She didn't see his hand coming. The slap connected with her cheek, snapping her head sideways. The room tilted. Emily's hand went to her face, shock and pain mingling. They stared at each other, and for one terrible moment, Emily saw something like fear in Ethan's eyes, as if he'd surprised himself. But then his expression hardened. "Don't push me, Emily. You don't want to see what happens when you push me." He left after that, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Emily sank to the kitchen floor, her hand still pressed to her burning cheek, and felt wetness between her legs. "No, please no," she cried silently. The cramping started 10 minutes later. Emily lost the baby alone on the bathroom floor, Ethan's handprint still red on her face, her tears mixing with the blood that meant another life, another chance, was gone. She called her sister Jenna, who came immediately and drove her to the emergency room. The doctors were kind, but not surprised. 5th miscarriage. Emily's file was getting thick with failed pregnancies. "Your uterus has sustained significant trauma," the doctor said gently, reviewing the ultrasound images. "Repeated losses, stress, possibly some physical trauma as well." She looked at Emily carefully, her gaze lingering on the bruise blooming on her cheek. "Mrs. Holloway, I need to ask, are you safe at home?" "I'm fine," Emily said automatically. "The bruising on your face. I walked into a door. I'm clumsy." The doctor didn't believe her. Emily could see it in her eyes. But she couldn't force Emily to accept help she wasn't ready to ask for. "We'll need to run more tests," the doctor continued. "But I'm concerned about your ability to carry a pregnancy to term. The damage to your uterine lining. Emily, you need to consider that continuing to try might not be safe for you. Might not be safe." As if anything about Emily's life was safe anymore. Ethan didn't come to the hospital. Didn't call. Didn't text. Jenna sat with Emily in the recovery room, holding her hand, and finally asked the question Emily had been avoiding. "And did he do this? Did Ethan cause the miscarriage?" Emily closed her eyes. The truth sat heavy on her tongue, but admitting it meant admitting everything. That she'd failed at marriage, that she'd chosen wrong, that she'd ignored every warning sign because she was desperate to be loved. "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe. The stress, the fighting. I don't know anymore. You need to leave him." "I can't." "Why not?" Because leaving meant accepting defeat. Because she'd built her entire adult life around the fairy tale of lasting love. Because if she couldn't make this marriage work, what did that say about her? "Because I have nowhere to go," Emily said instead, which was only partially true. "You have, Mom. You have us. You have." "I can't, Jenna. Please. Just let me handle this my way." But Emily's way was leading her somewhere dark, somewhere she might not be able to return from. And the worst part, the part that would destroy her when she finally learned the truth, was still coming. Because while Emily lay in that hospital bed, mourning her 5th lost child, Ethan was across town with a woman named Claire. And Claire was 3 months pregnant with a baby that would actually survive. Thank you for your support. Subscribe, share, and comment what you think of this story. Turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on any gripping story. Emily went home from the hospital to an empty house. No flowers. No apologetic husband. No acknowledgement that anything significant had happened. Just silence and the faint smell of Ethan's cologne lingering in rooms he'd occupied and abandoned. She'd taken a week off from teaching, telling her principal she had the flu. The other teachers sent sympathy cards and casseroles, not knowing that Emily's illness wasn't physical, not entirely, but something far more terminal. For 3 days, Ethan barely came home. He'd text sporadically, working late, don't wait up, busy day. Emily stopped responding. She spent her time lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the emptiness inside her that went beyond the physical loss. She was a shell, a house with all the furniture removed, echoing and hollow. On the 4th day, Rachel showed up unannounced with Thai food and wine. Jenna called me. Rachel said, unpacking containers in the kitchen. She's worried. I'm worried. I'm fine. You're not fine. You just lost. Rachel stopped, her voice breaking. God, Em. I'm so sorry. It's okay. I'm used to it by now. The words came out flat, emotionless. That's what worries me. You shouldn't be used to it. Rachel poured them both wine, then pushed a glass toward Emily. Where's Ethan? Working. It's Saturday. He works Saturdays now. Rachel studied her friend's face. The bruise had faded to a yellowish green, but it was still visible. Em, what happened to your face? I told you. I walked into. Don't lie to me. Please. Rachel reached across the table, taking Emily's hand. I've known you since college. I know when you're lying. Emily pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around herself. What do you want me to say? The truth. Did Ethan hit you? The question hung in the air between them. Emily could deny it, could make another excuse, could keep pretending everything was fine. But she was so tired of pretending. Yes, she whispered. Rachel's face crumpled. Oh, Em. Oh, honey. But it was just once. He was stressed, and I pushed him, and... Stop. Stop making excuses for him. Rachel's voice was fierce. There is no excuse. Not stress. Not anything. I know, but... No buts. You need to leave. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You pack a bag, and you leave. And go where? Do what? I can't just... Emily's voice broke. I can't just give up on my marriage. He gave up on a long time ago. You're just the last one to realize it. Before Emily could respond, her phone buzzed on the table. A text from an unknown number. You deserve to know the truth. Check your husband's other phone. The one in his car, hidden in the center console under the spare tire kit. Emily stared at the message, her heart beginning to pound. What the hell? What is it? Rachel leaned over to see. Emily showed her. Should I? Do you think it's real? Only one way to find out. They went to the garage together. Ethan's car, the BMW he loved more than he seemed to love Emily, sat in its usual spot. Emily's hands shook as she opened the driver's door, then the center console. Nothing. Maybe it's a prank, Emily said, relief and disappointment warring inside her. But Rachel was already pulling up the tire kit from the back. Wait, there. A phone. Cheap, basic, a burner. Emily picked it up with trembling hands and powered it on. No password. The message history loaded. Hundreds of texts. All to a contact saved as C. Emily's vision tunneled as she scrolled. Can't wait to see you tonight. She doesn't suspect anything. I'll tell her eventually. Just need to time it right. The baby is mine, right? You're sure, baby? Emily's thumb froze over that word. She scrolled up, looking for context, and found it. See, just got back from the doctor. 12 weeks. Everything looks perfect. Ethan, that's great, babe. I'll come by after work. See, when are you going to tell Emily? Ethan, soon. I promise. Once she's over this last miscarriage. I can't deal with her drama right now. The phone slipped from Emily's fingers, clattering on the concrete floor. Rachel grabbed it, scrolling through the messages herself. Oh my God, Em. Emily couldn't breathe. The garage spun around her. 12 weeks. While she'd been losing baby after baby, while she'd been blaming herself, torturing herself with what she might have done wrong, Ethan had been creating new life with someone else. Someone whose body wasn't broken. Someone who could give him what Emily couldn't. There's more, Rachel said quietly, her face pale. Em, there are pictures. Emily didn't want to see them, but she had to. She took the phone back and opened the photo gallery. There she was. Claire. Young. Younger than Emily. Maybe 25 at most. Pretty in an uncomplicated way, with long blonde hair and a bright smile. In one photo, she was laughing at the camera. In another, she was kissing Ethan's cheek. In another, she was lifting her shirt to show a small, perfect baby bump. And in the most recent photo, dated just 2 days ago, 2 days after Emily's miscarriage, Claire was holding an ultrasound picture. The text beneath it read, "Our son. Can't wait to meet him." Emily's knees gave out. She sank to the garage floor, Rachel catching her before she collapsed completely. "He's having a son," Emily whispered. "While I was losing ours, he was celebrating his." The betrayal was complete. Total. It wasn't just the affair, it was the timing, the cruelty, the calculated deception. While Emily had been blaming herself for her body's failures, Ethan had been proving with someone else that the problem wasn't him. The problem had always been Emily. Or at least, that's what her broken heart told her as she sat on the cold garage floor, holding evidence of her husband's double life, and finally, understanding that some marriages don't end. They were never real to begin with. Ethan came home at 11 p.m., smelling of her. Emily was waiting in the living room, the burner phone on the coffee table in front of her. She'd sent Rachel home despite her friend's protests, needing to face this alone. "You're still up," Ethan said, loosening his tie. He didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed at the inconvenience of her being awake. "We need to talk." "Can it wait? I'm exhausted." "No, it can't wait." Emily picked up the phone, holding it out to him. "Want to explain this?" For just a moment, barely a second, Ethan's face showed pure panic. Then it smoothed into something else. Not quite remorse. More like irritation at being caught. "Where did you get that?" "Someone sent me a message. Told me where to find it." Emily's voice was surprisingly steady. "Her name is Claire. She's 12 weeks pregnant. With your son." Ethan stared at her, calculating. She could see him trying to decide which approach to take: denial, anger, or confession. He chose a mixture of all three. "You went through my things." Jesus, Emily, what happened to trust? The audacity of it. Asking her about trust while carrying on an affair. Would have been funny if it wasn't so devastating. "How long?" Emily asked. "Does it matter?" "How long?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. 8 months. Maybe 9. I don't know exactly. 8 months. Their entire marriage had been a lie. While Emily had been losing pregnancy after pregnancy, while she'd been blaming herself, breaking herself trying to give him a child, he'd been building a family elsewhere. "Did you ever love me?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What kind of question is that?" "A fair one, I think. Did you ever actually love me? Or was I just convenient? Available?" Ethan poured himself a drink, scotch, always scotch, and took a long swallow before answering. "I thought I did. In the beginning. You were sweet, eager to please. Exactly what I needed after my ex's drama." Eager to please. The words made Emily's skin crawl. But then the miscarriages started. Ethan continued, his tone matter-of-fact, as if discussing a failed business venture. "And you became this sad, broken thing. Everything became about trying to get pregnant, losing the pregnancy, trying again. It was exhausting, Em. You were exhausting. So you found someone who wasn't exhausting. I found someone who could actually give me what I want. A family. A normal life. Claire doesn't come with all your baggage." The casual cruelty of it stole Emily's breath. This was who he really was, who he'd maybe always been. She'd just been too desperate, too damaged, too eager to please to see it. "The miscarriages," Emily said slowly, pieces clicking together. "The doctor said there was trauma. Physical trauma. The stress, the fighting." She looked up at him, horror dawning. "You caused them. You knew the violence, the stress. You knew what it was doing, and you kept." "Oh, don't start with that," Ethan snapped. "You're the one with the broken body. Emily, that's not my fault. I didn't ask you to be defective." "Defective." The word landed like a punch. Emily stood on shaking legs. "I want a divorce. Finally. Something we agree on." Ethan set down his glass. "I was going to wait until after Claire had the baby, but since you forced my hand." "Force your hand." Emily's voice rose. "You've been cheating on me for almost our entire marriage. And you've been failing at the one thing I married you for." Ethan shouted back. "I needed a wife who could give me children, Em. Not some broken woman who loses them over and over. Claire is 25. She's healthy. She's carrying my son without any problems. She's everything you should have been." The words were designed to destroy, and they succeeded. Emily felt something inside her shatter completely. Not her heart, but something deeper. Her sense of self. Her worth. The tiny, fragile belief she'd been clinging to that maybe, somehow, she deserved love. "Get out," she whispered. "This is my house. Get out." Emily screamed, grabbing his glass and hurling it at the wall. It shattered, scotch streaming down the paint. "Get out, get out, get out." Ethan stared at her, and for the first time, she saw something like respect in his eyes, as if her breaking had finally made her interesting. "Fine. I'll stay at Claire's tonight." He grabbed his keys. "My lawyer will be in touch. Don't expect much in the settlement. Most of our assets are in my name, and I have excellent attorneys." He left without another word, leaving Emily standing in the wreckage of their living room, surrounded by shattered glass and shattered dreams. She didn't cry. The tears had dried up somewhere along the way, leaving only a vast, aching emptiness. Her phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number that had started this. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but you deserve to know. Claire's roommate." Another text followed. "For what it's worth, she didn't know about you either. Not until recently. He told her you were separated. She's not the villain here. He is." Emily stared at the messages. Claire had been lied to as well. They were both victims of Ethan's manipulation, his need to have everything his way, his inability to see women as anything other than means to his ends. She texted back, "Thank you for telling me." The response came quickly. "Take care of yourself. And please, see a doctor. Check everything. Given what he's been doing, you need to make sure you're okay." Emily's hand moved to her abdomen, to the place where 5 babies had briefly existed before her body, broken, traumatized, and stressed beyond endurance, had let them go. She called her sister. "Jenna, can I stay with you for a while? I'm leaving him. I'm finally leaving him." And for the first time in months, Emily felt something other than despair. She felt rage. Clean, clarifying, strengthening rage. And she was going to need it for what came next. 3 weeks after Ethan moved out, Emily sat in Dr. Patricia Morrison's office, waiting for test results. She'd taken Claire's roommate's advice and scheduled a complete workup. The divorce papers had been filed. Emily was staying with Jenna in her small apartment, sleeping on the couch, trying to piece together who she was without Ethan defining her. But something was wrong. The cramping hadn't stopped since the last miscarriage. The bleeding came and went. And there was pain, constant, grinding pain that Emily had learned to live with but could no longer ignore. Dr. Morrison entered with a thick file and an expression Emily had learned to recognize. The one doctors wore when they had bad news but were trying to be gentle about it. "Emily, thank you for being patient with all the tests." Dr. Morrison sat down, her hands folded over the file. "I've reviewed everything, the ultrasounds, the MRIs, the blood work, your complete medical history. And your uterus has sustained significant damage. There's extensive scarring, evidence of repeated trauma, and signs of what we call Asherman syndrome, intrauterine adhesions that have formed from the repeated miscarriages and possible physical trauma." Emily had suspected as much. "Can it be fixed?" Dr. Morrison's pause was answer enough. "In some cases, surgery can help. But Emily, your case is severe. The scarring is extensive. And there's something else." She opened the file, pulling out images Emily didn't understand. "We found evidence of old injuries that were never properly treated. Damage to your pelvic floor, signs of blunt force trauma, internal bruising that healed incorrectly." The room tilted. "What does that mean?" "It means that the miscarriages weren't just bad luck. The physical abuse you endured, and I know you've been hesitant to confirm this, but the evidence is clear that abuse directly contributed to your pregnancy losses." Emily's hand flew to her mouth. "He killed them. The babies. He killed them. The trauma to your body created an environment where sustaining a pregnancy became nearly impossible. The stress hormones alone can cause miscarriage, but combined with physical injury." Dr. Morrison's voice was gentle but firm. "Emily, I need you to understand something. This wasn't your fault. Your body wasn't effective. Your body was trying to protect itself from ongoing harm." The words should have brought relief. Instead, they brought a fresh wave of grief, so powerful Emily doubled over, gasping. All those months of blaming herself, of thinking she was broken, of Ethan calling her defective. And the truth was that he had broken her. Deliberately or not, his violence had killed the children she desperately wanted. "There's more." Dr. Morrison continued quietly. Emily, given the extent of the damage and your symptoms, I'm recommending a hysterectomy. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. A hysterectomy, Emily repeated numbly. Your uterus is not functioning properly. The pain you're experiencing is likely from adhesions and potential infection. If left untreated, there's a risk of serious complications. Infection, hemorrhage, even sepsis. And Emily, even if we could save your uterus, the likelihood of you being able to carry a pregnancy to term is essentially zero. Zero. The death of a dream, spoken in a simple word. How soon? Emily asked. I'd like to schedule it within the next month. Sooner if your pain worsens. Emily nodded mechanically, her mind spinning. No more pregnancies. No more miscarriages. No more mornings of hope followed by days of loss. It was over. The dream of biological children, the fantasy of feeling life growing inside her, the possibility of holding a baby that was half hers. I know this is overwhelming, Dr. Morrison said. Would you like me to call someone? A family member? A friend? No, I'm okay. Emily wasn't okay, but she'd learned to say she was, even when her world was collapsing. She left the office with a surgery date, February 14th. Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on her. On the day celebrating love, Emily would be removing the physical symbol of her ability to create it. She sat in her car in the parking lot, hands on the steering wheel, and finally let herself feel all. The grief, the rage, the overwhelming sense of loss, not just to the children she'd never have, but of the woman she might have been if she'd never met Ethan Holloway. Her phone rang. Jenna. Hey, how'd it go? Emily's voice cracked. They want to do a hysterectomy. Silence. Then, I'm coming to get you. Where are you? I can drive. And where are you? Emily gave her the address and waited. 20 minutes later, Jenna's car pulled up beside hers. Her sister got in the passenger seat and immediately pulled Emily into a hug. I'm sorry, Jenna whispered. I'm so sorry. He did this, Emily said against her sister's shoulder. The doctor confirmed it. The abuse caused the miscarriages. All of them. And now my uterus is so damaged they have to remove it. That fucking bastard. Jenna pulled back, her eyes blazing. We're adding this to the divorce filing. He doesn't get to walk away from this like it's a simple breakup. He assaulted you, He caused permanent damage. I don't want to fight. I just want it to be over. It won't be over until he faces consequences. You can't let him get away with this. But Emily was tired of fighting. Tired of trying to make people see what they didn't want to see. She just wanted to heal, if healing was even possible. Her phone buzzed with a text. From Ethan. Heard you're having surgery. That's unfortunate. Claire and I are moving to Portland next month. Fresh start. Hope you can move on too. Moving on. As if the past year was something Emily could simply leave behind. As if she could forget the babies she'd lost, the body she'd sacrificed, the life she'd wasted trying to make a cruel man love her. Emily deleted the message without responding. She had a surgery to prepare for, a life to rebuild, and a future to create that had nothing to do with Ethan Holloway or the wreckage he'd left behind. But first, she had to survive losing the last piece of the dream that had sustained her through hell. And she wasn't sure she knew how. The surgery happened on a cold February morning. Emily's family surrounded her, her mother holding her hand, Sarah pacing nervously, Jenna making dark jokes to lighten the mood. Rachel had taken the day off work to be there, bringing magazines and chocolate and fierce declarations that Emily was going to be fine. This isn't an ending, Rachel had said firmly. It's a beginning. Emily wanted to believe her. Dr. Morrison performed the procedure laparoscopic. 2 hours that would change Emily's life forever. When she woke in recovery, groggy and in pain, her first thought was simple. It's gone. That part of my life is gone. The grief was immediate and overwhelming. But underneath it was something else. Something Emily hadn't felt in years. Relief. No more hoping. No more trying. No more monthly cycles of anticipation and devastation. Her body was no longer a battlefield between desire and capability. It was just her body, damaged but hers, ready to heal. The recovery was hard. 6 weeks of limited activity, of learning to exist in a body that felt different, lighter somehow. Empty, but also free. Jenna took time off work to stay with Emily. They watched terrible reality TV, ate ice cream for dinner, and slowly, carefully, started talking about everything Emily had kept buried. I thought if I could just give him a baby, he'd love me, Emily admitted one night, both of them wrapped in blankets on the couch. Like that would be enough to fix everything broken between us. A baby wouldn't have fixed him, Jenna said. He would have just found new ways to hurt you. New reasons why you weren't enough. I know that now, but I wish I'd known it sooner. You couldn't have known. That's how abusers work. They make you think you're the problem. During recovery, Emily started seeing a therapist. Dr. Rebecca Chun specialized in domestic violence and reproductive trauma. She helped Emily understand the patterns she'd repeated, the childhood wounds that had made her vulnerable to Ethan's manipulation. You learned early that love meant sacrifice, Dr. Chun explained. Your father left, so you became indispensable to your mother. You carried that into your relationships. The belief that if you just gave enough, sacrificed enough, you'd be worthy of staying. But I can't change what happened. No, but you can change what you do next. What Emily did next surprised everyone, including herself. 2 months after her surgery, she went back to teaching. But not to her old school. Too many memories, too many questions. Instead, she found a position at a Title I elementary school on the other side of town, where the kids came from hard backgrounds and needed teachers who understood that surviving was its own kind of bravery. Why this school? The principal asked during her interview. Because these kids know what it's like when life doesn't go as planned, Emily said. And I want them to know that doesn't mean their story is over. She got the job. Emily also started volunteering at a women's shelter 3 evenings a week. She led support groups for survivors of domestic violence, sharing her story when it felt right, listening when it was needed. The first time she stood in front of a group of women, some with visible bruises, some with wounds that couldn't be seen, Emily's hand shook. My name is Emily, and 6 months ago, I left my husband, she began. He never put me in a hospital, never broke any bones. But he broke something else, my belief that I deserve better. And it took losing almost everything to realize that surviving isn't the same as living. The women listened. Some cried. One woman, barely 20, with a baby on her hip, approached Emily afterward. How did you find the courage to leave? I didn't find courage, Emily admitted. I just ran out of pieces of myself to sacrifice. The divorce was finalized in April. Ethan got the house, most of the money, and his freedom. Emily got nothing but her escape, and surprisingly, that felt like enough. He sent one final text. Hope you find whatever you're looking for. Sorry things didn't work out. Emily didn't respond. There was nothing left to say to a man who'd never really seen her as human. She heard through Rachel that Claire had the baby, a boy, healthy, perfect. Emily waited for the jealousy, the rage, the sense of cosmic unfairness. Instead, she felt something unexpected, pity. Not for herself, but for Claire. Because someday, Claire would realize what Emily already knew. That Ethan Holloway was charming until you needed something from him, loving until you disappointed him, devoted until you became inconvenient. By summer, Emily had moved into her own apartment. Small, affordable, but entirely hers. She painted the walls bright colors, hung artwork her students made, and created a space that felt like safety instead of performance. Her sisters visited often. Her mother helped her plant herbs on the balcony. Rachel set her up on a few dates, all disasters, but funny ones that they laughed about over wine. I'm not ready, Emily told Rachel after the third awkward coffee date. Maybe I won't be for a long time. That's okay. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be you. And Emily was learning who that was. The woman beneath the wife, beneath the people pleaser, beneath the desperate need to be chosen. She was discovering that she liked hiking, that she was actually funny when she wasn't monitoring every word for potential offense, that she could be content alone in ways she'd never been content with Ethan. 1 year after the surgery, Emily stood in front of her support group and realized something profound. I thought losing my uterus meant losing my purpose, she said. I thought motherhood was the only way I could matter. But I've learned something. There are 1,000 ways to nurture, to create, to leave something beautiful behind. I may never have biological children, but I have my students. I have this community. I have a life built on my terms, not someone else's vision of what I should be. The women applauded, and Emily felt it. Finally, fully, the thing she'd been searching for in all the wrong places. Wholeness. Not because she'd found someone to complete her, but because she'd learned she was never incomplete to begin with. The scars would always be there, physical and emotional. The grief would visit some days, unexpected and overwhelming. And there would be moments when Emily would see a mother with a baby and feel the ache of what might have been. But those moments no longer defined her. Because Emily Carter, survivor, teacher, advocate, woman, had done the hardest thing imaginable. She'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to her and transformed it into purpose. And in doing that, she'd proven what Ethan had never understood. She was never broken. She was never defective. She was simply too strong to remain in a cage built by someone else's cruelty. And now, finally free, Emily was learning to fly. I have a question for you that's watching. What would you have done if you were in Emily's shoes? Would you have stayed and endured to save your marriage? Or would you walk away after the first miscarriage? Let me know in the comments your answer. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe, turn on post notifications, share, and like.